Hello, and welcome to the first Luck Check Talkback, the only show on Twitch that features these specific people talking about this specific thing. My name is Johnny McAllister, and joining me tonight are two distinguished guests, Alex Mason and Ben Stortenbecker. How's it going, guys?
Hey,
Good.
you forgot the doctor this time.
I did. I didn't write it in this time. I figured you were tired of it by now. I just assumed at this point you've refunded the doctorate and you're going back for something else now. Is that usually how it goes?
The backup plan was always, at least my friend's backup plan, and I think I'll steal that, is to open a food truck.
Hell yeah.
Just
What a backup plan. Love it.
get real back into the old Chick-fil-A days, you know.
Very good.
Hey, Jesus Christ, that's who's here.
Excellent. Now, today on Luck Check, we aren't doing anything too crazy. It's going to be a very casual, laid-back kind of chat between the three of us. We're here to answer your questions, though, chat, about the show, about us, and about life in general. So feel free throughout the day to go ahead and shout out any questions you have in the Twitch chat whenever you feel like it. To start us off, however, I do have an incredibly difficult question for the two of you. You ready?
Oh no.
It's a high challenge question. If you had a TV show, a television series, what would it be called?
Block right now.
What now?
I said I dash block right now.
I dash block.
Well, no. Before you finished, it's like block the question real fast.
I understand. If you had a television series that you were in charge of, either the producer or the front runner or the star of, what would that series be called?
Ooh. I honestly can't think of one.
See, that's really not going to work.
Question.
Yeah,
So
So I'll go ahead and start. I have been writing stories for most of my life and have already gone over the idea of what a TV show that I would front run would be several times. And the first TV show, it would be an animated TV show that I want to make. And it's called Atomic Masquerade or Atomic Gospel, either one. And it's like a post-apocalyptic animated story. That's everything I'm willing to tell.
Yeah, well, you're incredibly creative.
Why, thank you. Thens would be dice goblins. I like that.
Well, I mean, that's a little too revealing of self. Instead, we should lean far harder into that and do The Math Magicians, which is a sitcom, basic multi-camera sitcom style show about three loafing around mathematicians / mathematical physicists who decide to form a quartet that also does magic tricks in the middle of the competitions to give themselves a little bit of edge. But of course, this is basically Big Bang Theory, but done correctly.
This is just good Big Bang Theory.
I'm here for it. I'll foot the budget. You have $0 to make it, so go ahead and cut wherever you can.
It'll be me, Ian, and Patrick, and we won't even be a full quartet, and that'll be the joke.
Yeah, exactly. Very cool. I love that. So what about you, Alex? What's your TV show?
I think I would have to do one of the stories that I've been working on. Maybe Dragon Laws is what I was calling it, where dragons rule over countries, and basically what I based my D&D game on with you and your siblings.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually a pretty good caveat into question number 2 that I wanted to ask. What are your guys' D&D backgrounds? I know we might have been over this before on a previous episode of Luck Check, but I figured it'd be nice to have it in just one little area where we can talk about the three of us, our history with D&D, the stuff we enjoy, what got us into it, the things we like doing about it, stuff like that.
My D&D background, I've been playing since, oh God, almost 7 years now. 7, 8
Wow.
years. I have a current game still with a bunch of friends from New York where I'm still only like a level 7 because we play maybe once a year.
Hey, that's supposed to be my bit for the games that I run. You don't have to worry about power scaling if no one gets any power, you know?
Exactly.
Well, the problem is we made our characters wrong, so we're overpowered as hell.
Oh no.
Because it was the first time anyone in that group had played D&D.
No. Is this going to be like one of those things that's like I picked up a magic card and try to figure out how mechanically the flavor text works?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We know how you're supposed to roll 4d6 and get rid of the lower one.
Oh no.
We didn't.
We just rolled 46 and kept it.
I
Mm.
have a 22 in charisma. I'm a rogue.
Just utterly broken. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Very
We
good.
killed a dragon in 3 moves, not 3 rounds, 3 moves.
I'll bounce that back really quick to you, Ben. What's your D&D history look like?
Well, let's begin at the very beginning because, of course, your boy Dr. Benjamin grew up in a time, beautiful, beautiful back in the time, at the end of the Satanic Panic, but it grew strong in our family. I remember being, what was it? There was something where Dungeons and Dragons brought up when I was a kid, and it was just like, oh no, this is bad. I remember one of my cousins was sharing it. He had started playing D&D when I was like pretty young, but like we got together for a family event, and he was trying to tell me about it when I was 14, 15. Me trying to be a good boy, just looked at that and was like, oh no, demons, how dare you.
Jesus wouldn't love this.
Exactly.
This is not in the way of our Lord.
It's just not the it's not healthy for your soul.
Oh
So
gods.
fortunately, I went out into a secular school and actually experienced the world a little bit, like a human being would, and that chilled me out real good. So I think I started D&D, started playing D&D in my very last semester of an overly long undergraduate career. So I've only been playing for maybe 6.5 years, but at the beginning it was just me showing up to some guy, a friend's house, who's like, you know what, we're gonna play D&D. We have a big group, it's fine. And sitting on a couch with like 8 other people and Peyton's like, hand me a character sheet, I guess. Like I'll figure, like tell me what to do, I'll figure it out. And getting into it and playing it was a half elf ranger named Lonk Manslayer. One of my most fun things, like a great introduction, because we got into a point where it was like, okay, you've got an enemy camp, and I got to do a thing where I snuck into the camp and all the way around, steal their treasure, and get back out. And I was kind of hooked ever since.
Yeah, that's fair.
Sometimes all you need is one cool thing to happen and you're in.
Yeah.
I thought it was cool that I was playing in a church till like 3 a.m.
Hey, that never ever underplay the feeling of like chill insider club status when you get to stay at church after hours, right?
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't part of this church. Our philosophy professor, because the group I played with was all in a philosophy club together, and that's why we started playing. A philosophy professor, her husband was the deacon at the church and just let us play there.
I mean, that's the way to do it, truthfully. If you have the connections, you gotta use them.
You gotta use them.
Absolutely.
I mean, truly incredible. Excuse me.
No, I won't. Get out. no coughing or sneezing. You're banned. You're not welcome back at Luck Check. Kamos is dead.
All right.
You don't know how tempted I am to open my chips right now.
Oh, please don't.
It's an audio nightmare.
It really is. For myself, I've actually been playing D&D much less than either of you. I only started playing D&D in 2020. And even then it wasn't like a very serious, like, I'm going to play D&D thing. It was like a friend invited me and a couple of other friends to play D&D. And I was just like, okay, sure. And I had an okay time. It was mostly just, our DM was pretty new to it, and to DMing specifically, and didn't really know how to handle a bunch of like level 1, never before touched a tabletop role-playing game before players. And so me and my friends made 5 murder hobos, had no idea what was going on, refused to connect with the story, threw away plot hooks whenever we could, and really just ruined this guy's life. He did not have a great time.
Was this the campaign where you had a pet goblin?
This was a campaign where he had a pet goblin. I'm going to make sure, just, don't say any names, just being careful here. But we had I was playing as my first ever D&D character was a dragonborn warlock / barbarian named Tunalock. And the idea was I had rolled my stats so well that I had that was, unfortunately, word nerd, you were not my DM. I feel like I might have had a better time, but that's not, that's not important. No. I'm still very good friends with the DM from that campaign. I do not blame them for any of it. It was entirely our fault as the players. But no, I was a dragonborn warlock / barbarian who worshipped Tiamat, and I thought it would be interesting, not knowing how the economy worked. I was just like, hey, would it be something if, like, the thing I had to do for my warlock in order to cast spells was I had to pay money for spells. So I was just like, yeah, like I'm worshiping this dragon who collects a hoard, so I have to contribute to the hoard in order to cast spells. And so we ended up saying, yeah, sure, if you don't contribute like this much money after this much amount of time, you lose access to your spells. And then I couldn't get the money, and I lost all of my warlock abilities. And I was like, huh.
Oh, no.
So when we leveled up, I took a level in Barbarian, because I was just like, I have a really good strength stat, so I guess I'll try and be useful somehow. And then the campaign ended. But that was my first time playing D&D. I kind of took a break from it. I got burned a little bit. I wasn't having a great time. Mostly just I didn't understand how to be an engaged player. And so it took a while for me to realize, like, hey, this is kind of like a collective storytelling experience that you and your friends work together on. It's not just some sandbox thing where you bully the DM until he doesn't want to play anymore.
That sounds quintessential, just like poor nerd being introduced into a social thing. I feel like that's far too common a story. Far too easy a thing to think about how the game works, and like particularly back before things like Critical Role and Dimension 20 and stuff was around to really kind of show what a game could be like and how much fun it can be to just come up with silly things and tell each other that story.
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned Dimension 20, which is another good topic. That is the reason I'm playing D&D now, is that show. I think, Alex, you're the one who got me into it, which was funny because you don't even watch it yourself. You just mentioned something about it, and I went ahead and like I looked at it and I was like, this looks fun. I'm getting some fun clips showing up on my YouTube. Let me watch some of this. And then I fell in love with it, and I was like, oh, D&D is like way more than I thought it was. And I fell in love with it. And my good friend and co-host Tovi ended up throwing together another campaign, which I joined in. I shortly after that started my own home game, which is still going on right now. It's been a load of fun. Shout out to Rudy, Melly Cuccelli in chat. But yeah, we had a very good time, and that led us to luck check. Tovi and I kind of both getting back into D&D at the same time and both being very invested, and then specifically his home game ending was the stimulus for the two of us to work together to make luck check. Was Tovi was done, wanted to take a break, and was working on his next campaign that he wanted to run, and then I came to him with an idea of, hey, I really enjoy playing with you, both as your DM and as a player in your game. What if we put together like a live show, a Twitch stream of us DMing for each other and whatever other players we can get our hands on? And that idea shaped and morphed until it became Luck Check.
We actually have a question for you from Melly Cocelli. With how much work goes into a campaign and building the world and all the stuff that goes into it, how do you not get burned out from running a campaign? I've always been super impressed with how prepared you always are. You are seriously prepared, Johnny. You gave us folders in our session 0 for your own campaign.
Oh, wow.
Like color-coded folders.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Yeah, so I don't know that what works for me will work for everyone else. I have been, as a hobby, writing stories and worlds and specifically game design documents ever since I was almost 11. So that's been about 12 years now is what I was working on, is when I started just doing this as a hobby. And it wasn't always for D&D, but I've always been working on just practicing creating worlds, creating characters, creating scenarios and situations. And then when I realized what DMing was all about, I was just like, oh, I already know how to do this. Like, this is what I've been doing most of my life. I can do this. So when it came time to start a home game, I wanted to make sure that all of my players were on the same page as me. So I prepared lore documents, I prepared spell cards, I prepared like homebrew information. Like there's several homebrew races in the world of my campaign. Such as I made a custom treant race that Melly Cuccelli plays in my home campaign. And I made a custom, they're called Oxellans, but it's effectively like a mutant fish person race that Tovi plays in my home campaign. Yeah, and so I would say the way I avoid getting burnt out is I try and actively so first off, I front loaded a lot of work. So a lot of the stuff that you guys have seen in the home game and that people will see in Luck Check are things that I've written several months ago and are just you'll run into things that I've already written a long time ago. And so it's just like, oh hey, they're in Tiversard. I already know what's going on there, so I don't even have to like do a whole lot of extra work for that specific session or for that specific scenario, other than just like, let's pull up a list of the characters that I said were here. Or let's pull up a list of people that are going to show up in the Galvin Key when you go there in the next couple of weeks.
Here's a really kind of slightly to derail, but like relevant question at that point. When you're doing that, how much do you keep in mind, like in your brain? Like how much do you feel like you retain and understand the setting without having to look at lists? Or vice versa, how much do you like have lists pulled up on your computer ready to reference? And if you do, how do you manage that?
I am a very big fan of Google Sheets. I use it for everything.
Everything.
And literally everything. Alex will tell you that when we're relaxing and just engaging in our hobbies, Alex will be playing a game and I will be typing up nonsense into Google Sheets because that's how I entertain myself.
He Google Sheets for fun.
Oh my.
So to answer your question, I keep a lot of the information that is meant to be secret in my head. So stuff like things that I don't want Toby to find out about because they're things that should be a surprise to his character, those don't go onto a document anywhere. But things that are public knowledge for both of us to reference when we need to, those all go into a document. But I will say, while streaming, especially while live, I do tend to have a handful of documents open of just like, here's like the area that they're in, and here's everything that they might run into. And then I just, sometimes the Control F key or the Command F if you're on Mac is your best friend. So you have this big document and just, oh, they ran into the invisible monster. What were my stats for that again? And I can just Control F the name of that monster and it'll pull me towards that. So that is my recommendation. My other recommendation, if you're running initiatives and you're running a combat as a DM and you find that you're always scrambling to write things down, make a Google sheet. I promise it's going to go so well for you. You'd line up the monsters by their initiative. You can put their AC, their spell save, their speed, other relevant information just in the Google sheet. You can slide them up and down based on what the players roll. You can pre-roll your initiatives so that you don't have to do it in combat. It saves so much time. It has truly been a lifesaver for me personally. But yeah, thank you so much for the initial question, Meli Cuccelli, and then also for the follow-up question there, Dram. I don't think I ever actually finished answering the first question really quick. I avoid getting burned out because this is what I love doing more than anything, is this kind of creative storytelling. So it might not work for everyone, but I find that always trying to make something new is very engaging. So I avoid getting burned out by working more, and I don't think that's great for everyone. But if I'm getting burned out in one area of the world of Anadrest, which is my homebrew, the world of my homebrew game, I'll make a new Google document and just say, all right, enough about this area. Let me just start working on this area instead. And I find the gap is interesting enough for me to keep myself engaged. But yeah, if anyone else has any questions in chat, feel free to shout those out. In the meantime, I have another round of questions for our players here, which I'll also answer myself because it's relevant to me. What was the original inspiration for your character on Luck Check? I'm going to bounce this off first to Alex.
Honestly, I didn't have any inspiration for a rune before. I just looked up I heard we were doing a pirate campaign, and I'm like, all right, cool, I'll just look up water breathing species, because I figured, hey, if you're going to be on a boat, might as well be able to breathe water and shit. So I was just looking up stuff, and then I saw water genasi, and you're like, that sounds cool. And then I was looking up and I'm like, what is... I don't want to be a rogue pirate, because that seems like run of the mill. You're doing a pirate campaign, have a rogue swashbuckler. Like that's lame. So I was looking and I saw Moon Druid, and I'm like, oh, and I'm a water genasi, so my hair will like change with the moon phases and stuff, and I'll just be new to being a pirate, and that's it.
Yeah. That's a very solid way to start a character. A lot of people don't really know exactly what they want to do for a D&D character until they've already started playing. And that can be a very genuine and honest way to figure out like who you're exploring and who you're trying to be in that instance.
It is new for me doing it that way. Usually I have a character idea before a campaign is even ever suggested to me. Like my character for your home campaign, Melody, I had that idea of a warlock thinking they're a bard because they're so dumb for years.
Wow. Hey, that's definitely like, I think that's a cool and valid way. I think that's kind of how Kamo started off too, where it's this, I want to try something out new mechanically. And then as I am taking that in and viewing the world, let the character kind of be filled in. I remember the first real campaign that I actually played in was up here, second year grad school with this guy that I met playing a bunch of Magic the Gathering at various local tournaments because your boy's that kind of nerd.
Oh my god, you play Magic? Can't believe we're playing D&D with such a huge nerd.
Can't believe you're playing D&D with someone who would, oh god, take Wizards of the Coast's other products for money? No. Anyways, so what he actually did is he invited like a couple of friends that he knew from work. This very magnetic personality. One of the most fun like Magic experiences that I've ever had, even with close friends. Was just like this random person that I met who we laughed a bunch and thought he would beat me because he chose Boros, and it's like turns out is it's his better dummy. Anyways, tangent. um, what he did is he had one of his friends make up for us what's it a bunch of character sheets. This is just like, here, you make the character sheets, like give them level 1 stuff, something easy. Here, everyone take what you're interested in, these are all their names or whatever. And yes, we're nerd, I can do that sometimes. Excuse me. And like we just really got to play. Now god, that was such an interesting thing because I walked in like an hour and a half late and we still had a blast, but it was just like, oh, these people are already like wild and right into the mood. All right, well, we'll get there. But what I had a really fun time is almost treating it like being back in high school, being a drama club kid nerd, or a drama kid nerd, and just having a script and being like, oh, but what does this character actually feel here? Like, yeah, I've got the bonds and the words and the things that they're filled out, uh, but like, what
What are
is
their
this actual
true
character?
motivations?
One thing that like definitely what I liked about what this DM did is he literally like stopped and was like, okay, everyone, like let's one of the weird mechanical things is like, okay, everyone roll a dice, a d6. And it's like, oh, okay, you rolled low, you rolled high. All right, you tell me why your character wants to go respond to this challenge that this big bad guy gave. You tell me why your character doesn't want to but is still going to. It was like, oh, yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's a good way to do that.
I really I've always wanted to try and incorporate that kind of stuff into the game that I DM. I'm bad at it, but I definitely do like those moments for introspection.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And particularly responding to why there's a challenge there. But and I really do enjoy that like idea of like, here's a shell of a character, like fill it out with Kamos. Now to actually answer the question, I kind of went the same way that Rune did, where it was, okay, I've got this kind of BS supplemental thing that includes a cool class called War Mage that like flavorfully really like is interesting, and then mechanically it's this kind of like, almost martial class magic caster because of how it works. It's that short rest burst recovery time that like a lot of martial classes have, and I think
Right.
that's really cool. What kind of does that make me feel? And I remember talking to you. I was like, okay, I kind of see this as being like a fast boy. You know what? I can get back to StarCraft, maybe like some sort of pro gamer kind of thing. Which, of course, you, Johnny, I don't know how much people have known, but you were like, okay, cool. I'm gonna make up a entire card game for this world so that you can be a pro gamer in that. I was like, oh, okay, sure.
He never stops. He never stops.
He really
He
does
is
it. It's
constant creating new things, and I'm just sitting there like, ah.
it's truly incredible. It is like just a dizzying amount of the content that you as a human being put out, Johnny. And then the moment that it was
R.L.
like,
Stein of like games.
mhm, that it was a card game, because I had to actually pick a race, and we were going through the different continents, and then we were like, Ibalest. Oh yeah, it's filled with tieflings. I'm like, you know what? That sounds cool. I haven't done tieflings at all ever. That sounds interesting. And then you go, by the way, it's kind of, I'm thinking Egyptian flavored. And then immediately I've got this character who's pro gamer, or whose lifestyle is supported by gaming with cards, who is Egyptian, uh, and magical. So of course, immediately once all of those pieces come together, it's like, okay, I know who this character is. It's a very obscure Yu-Gi-Oh reference.
Yeah.
And then immediately I wrote like all of the backstory for that, to be like all of the creative things that came from this, like, oh, this is a fun like idea, let's flesh it out, let's actually like turn it into a thing that would make sense. And I wrote a little bit of a bit of a story, like, backstory that I gave you to try and flesh that out. And then that's of course where the accent came from, because if you're going to be Egyptian, well, it turns out they've been colonized by France for, or had been for, so many years, and all of English speaking Egyptian accents sound French ish. It's this kind of like same mushing, squishing of the hard consonants that you have.
Right.
You have this very bad accent, and yeah. Now, once we did the soft reset into our beautiful Scattered Isles world, that I don't know quite entirely how Kamos is, but I wanted the character because he was fun, and I loved annoying the chat with my accent. And like, come on, who could ask for a better thing than some gimmick to annoy the chat with?
It is very good. I do have a question for both of you, but this is a little more for Ben. What are the charisma stats of your characters?
12.
I think it's 14. I believe I got +2 to charisma.
Gotcha. Okay. For 14, you should
roll
have
save.
Yeah, I'm scared. Why do you need to know?
No, I'm just curious because so
14.
the character I play, Gellin, has a 17 in charisma because he's a paladin half caster. They use charisma as the casting modifier. It feels very much though that Kamos is the face character of Luck Check. Like
It's
not in like an intentional like we're trying to push your character to be important, but like it feels very much that Kamos is like, we're gonna go, like, I'm gonna go talk and make the connections, and that's gonna be how we meet the people.
sorry, I got distracted there for a second. One more time. I'm a very good show participant.
I understand. No, I didn't necessarily have a question. It was more just an observation of it comes across sometimes that Kamos is the primary face of the party. For chat, a face character is usually your high charisma, makes all the persuasion, deception, intimidation rolls to try and get into the places or get the connections that you need to have.
Oh,
So Toby's character in our home campaign.
Yes, exactly. Except realistically, the face job is Melody's because you have the highest charisma, but it's generally Toby that's doing it because of just how the character ended up. You can be a face character without having the stats to roll for it. It just, it makes sense.
Well, I mean, so it would make more sense. Like, it is a weird thing with how Kamos is kind of like naturally, because of stats and just fit and background as a royal, kind of fits into a captain and face role, even though his stats and like therefore the way I should play him and try to doesn't naturally match up with always being the most persuasive one on the crew. And that's why, like, way back when we were trying to do ships, kind of angling into that, like when we were trying to find a ship just to get to Tiversard, I was like, hey, Gallon, why don't you go do that? Because your character's good at that thing.
Kamos knows the exact number that Gellin's charisma score is.
I just assume it's better. As a person who takes charisma scores very seriously for role playing, as my poor sister in the chat can confirm, if I've got a -1 in charisma, it's gonna be an awkward time.
That's a fun question. I have a very hard time differentiating my idea of the character and what their actual stats are. Like, I don't
Mhm.
generally play into what their stats are for role playing. I play into this is how the character is, and so this is how they're going to act.
Mhm.
And the stats come after that for me.
So, okay, here's the question then. Do you do the opposite thing where you think of character, idea, what they are, then roll your stats?
Yes.
Yeah, see, so, like, I do often have this mechanical view of, like, okay, again, where I'm used to taking in character sheets, that's how I was introduced to D&D, like, twice over, where it's, "Here's a character sheet, you play this guy," and it's like, "Well, okay, I've gotta play someone who is very charismatic. I have to play someone who's got a -1 and therefore a little not quite mashing with everyone." Um,
Yeah, that
the
makes
poor
sense.
wizard character that I'm playing, like, the pre-made one for, Fandelver is, he's a wizard, but he's an acolyte that doesn't quite match with everyone, and it's so fun, without a doubt, having having a negative score to be like, "Oh, your thing is your character's bad at this, so, like, play it up." Very good time.
Yeah,
But I always, like,
absolutely.
love that as, like, a thing to help break up the monotony of when playing a character being something other than either yourself or the opposite of yourself. 'Cause I feel like it's very, very common for when role playing characters to like do things that are along that axis of like I view the world in terms of who I am because that's just kind of what humans do,
Hmm.
and therefore I've got those two extremes, and it can get hard to get off that axis, you know.
Right. Yeah. Um, I would say for me, it is very much a I will start with a character idea, which is I pick something that I find true in my own life, and I say I want to build a character around this, and then I'll flesh out who the character is. I'll generally have like an idea of here's the class and race I want to play, but that's more just from a mechanical standpoint. And those
Mhm.
like the mechanics of my character and the lore and character of my character are usually very separate until the very end of the character creation for me.
What a
Um,
fucking sentence! The character of my character.
you understand. It all makes sense. It
It
tracks.
does. It's
Uh,
beautiful.
the
I
character
love
that I
English.
made for uh, Tovy's first campaign um, was a character named Alec Zagris, who started off as this idea of I want to play a monk ranger multi-class because I like torturing myself. And mechanically, I like those two classes. They're both a little underperforming, but they're kind of interesting. So I wanted to do that. So that was the mechanical side. Is as far as I got was there. And then on the flavor slash character side, I said I want to look at who I am as a person and figure out some kind of way to transcribe that into a role playing experience. And so for me, the key thing that I was experiencing at the time when I was making the character was I was having a lot of trouble with anxiety, both at work and in other places. My medication wasn't really working the way I wanted it to. And so I was just like, fuck it. I'm making a D&D character whose primary character trait is they have generalized anxiety disorder. They have a severe anxiety problem. Um, I came up with here's a reason for their severe anxiety, and I worked with Tovi and I worked with my DM to build it into the lore and like create a scenario where that can kind of come up and like create a story for the other players. And then I was just like, okay, my goal as a player is to see my character start to overcome their anxiety, but my goal as a character is to save the world or do the task that's before us. So there's a bit of like there's a bit of coordination there, which is that um, something that a good DM can do, and something that Tovi did very well, was he let us kind of align our personal goals with the overarching goal of the campaign, which was,
Mhm.
go stop the evil god. And for my character, a lot of that meant go redeem yourself and figure out like a way to overcome your anxieties in order to defeat this god. And it created this very fun and engaging character to play, and it was probably is one of the most fun characters I've ever played in D&D was that character.
Hmm. I mean, that's actually
Nice.
really cool. To what was I saying? Speaking of balancing and turning back a little bit, I think one of the weird things of like how Gamo's gotten to that role is that, well, you specifically are playing a role that's kind of interesting because of this hybrid player DM mechanic that you and Tovi are going into. I think that's very fascinating.
Yeah, it's very fun. Do you have like a specific question to lead into that, or are you just mentioning that? I
Nope,
think
I
I
wanted to go on. I was
misunderstood.
like, it's
It's cool.
interesting, but then I was gonna go, hey, by the way, you didn't answer the question about why did you make Gallon? What's the deal? What's the deal with Gallon?
I
Uh,
hate you so much.
yes. So Galen was very much the same way, but I had to be a little more meticulous isn't the right word. I had to be more intent. Like I had to have more intention behind him because I
Mhm.
couldn't make the world and then also make a character knowing what was going on in the world. So I
Oh
made
yeah.
Galen before I started writing anything for Luckcheck. I was just like, okay, Tovi, tell me what you think is going to happen, or like you tell me your pitch for the world that we're doing. I'll make a character for that, and then I'll start helping you write things. So he said, here's the Scattered Lands. We're a bunch of like former pirates or slaves of the Corrigent. Magic is out. We don't like magic for some reason. And I was just like, sweet, got it. Gellin came about from uh, another just very personal, like true thing about me. I tend to be rather anti-authority leaning. I
What?
won't say anything further than that for reasons. Um, but Gellin is very much supposed to be uh this character that is their primary motivation is freedom, and specifically the freedom to do whatever you want to do. And it's not exactly a healthy freedom. It's a I can do anything, so why shouldn't I be allowed to do anything? Which can kind of turn into this whole idea of, oh, hey, am I a good person because I believe in freedom? Well, I'm also a pirate that robs people. So clearly that's like something there is not good about my character. So I wanted to
So
make
maybe
this
we won't
character.
get, so maybe we won't get you a straw hat in the campaign so soon.
Yeah, maybe not. But that was the idea behind Gellin was I wanted there to be this confliction of every like he believes that being a pirate is about freedom, but he's also just willingly ignoring the fact that being a pirate is also about taking away the freedoms of others. And that's where Gellin kind of came from.
I like it.
Interesting. Yeah, that's some fun. That's some fun moral grayness that like makes for a complicated character. I like it. And certainly, boy, or has the campaign kind of taken an angle on that where we're I don't know. I don't know how I feel about how we've done things.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's happened that
Like, all right,
D&D
well,
isn't about being the good guys always. Sometimes it's about moral gray areas and conflictions, and doing the right thing by these people means doing the wrong thing by these other people, and how do you justify that?
we're pirates. Yo ho.
Exactly.
What he said.
The high seas aren't all they're cracked up to be, is you know what they would say.
Oh yeah. Life is tough.
Life is tough.
So here, give me spoilers, or maybe we won't. What was happening with Walter at the end there? I want to know.
With Walter, yeah, I can give a little
What's
bit of information.
Walter?
Well,
Who's Walter?
Walter Mundry, the Hadozi pirate, who proclaimed himself a spider monkey before leaping onto the side of Belfry Llewellys 2 sessions ago.
We love
Um,
him.
so there's a project that I won't get into too much about what's going on with it that Tovi and I are working on related to Luckcheck, meant to be like a supplementary amount of homebrew information that we are using in the Luckcheck streams. And a part of that is an official pirate class made by myself, where one of the subclasses is focused on bombs, effectively. You're a bombardier pirate.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what Walter was. So when you were hearing those explosions inside of the belfry, that was Walter pulling out some kind of explosive contraption that he had made and using it to fight off the guards.
Oh.
Sounds so cool.
Yeah, it's a good time.
What a
Uh,
fun little guy. Yeah.
there's a handful of other things that are just like, there's stuff that I have no idea what was going on with because Toby ended up not telling me his plans for, not that he was hiding information to screw me over, just like, he had secrets he needed to keep from me so that my character would be more engaged or surprised by what was happening.
Mhm.
And he told me that he didn't remember, that he forgot that my greatest fear in the world is wasps. But I'm 90% sure he made the jelly hums to torture me. There is a thing that happened in episode, I want to say 3 of Luck Check, where we're on Tiversard, and we have to extract this medicinal component called Bug's Root from these massive, like, overgrown mangrove tree-sized hives of wasps. And I am terrified of wasps. I exclusively go through the 3rd stage of fight or flight that they don't talk to you very much about, which is freeze. When a wasp enters my vicinity, I stop moving. I shut down. And so it was funny because at that point, Alex and I were sitting right next to each other, and I start just freezing. Alex notices, reaches over, and just grabs my hand and squeezes it. And that's the only way I made it through that part because my imagination is good enough, or just visual enough, that I was imagining these fist-sized wasps landing on my friend's back right next to me, and my brain was just like, nope, we're gonna shut down really quick.
Oof.
And that was a great experience. I loved that. Thank you very much, Toby.
And we say you're the horror specialist. My goodness.
We just take people's phobias and decide to make them in the game.
Yeah, exactly. All I do is pull
Johnny's is
people's
more
eyes out.
generalized.
Look,
Yeah. Ugh.
it's a fun little and make a little trunk stag people to murder them. It's fine.
Fine.
It's fine. Everything's gonna go bad.
Great.
I remember listening to that moment because that was one where I wasn't able to join and just absolutely enjoying just see like imagining you and everyone else who was just uncomfortable with the idea of those wasps just squirming.
It was an experience. I did not enjoy it. It was good for the show. Like, I think it was good for story-wise, but I, as a player, hated that moment. I would not do that again. That is certainly
Mm,
not my preference.
perfect. So a wasps only campaign.
I'm good.
Don't worry, Johnny. I'll beat up Toby for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We can
That'll
drive
be
over there
plenty of
right now. It's fine.
Let's go.
True. If I
uh,
don't see him in the chat, you should beat him up.
exactly. He's busy doing real life things.
Gross, like an adult.
Something
Awful.
like that. So I do want to ask
Very
really quick. I want to get a final roundup of anyone in chat. If y'all have any questions, go for it. Then I have a bit of a half question for everyone. And by half, I mean I haven't fully formulated it yet, but I'm thinking about it. Which is to say, if there was something that your characters could do in this campaign, what would you want it to be? And this is more of maybe a player motivation for your character to accomplish rather than an in-character motivation.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, pick a direction. I think Kamos definitely needs to figure out and be pushed in a way that forces them to either stick with this like figure out what to do after being stuck in jail by a bunch of people that they trusted for most of their life just because of some inconvenient appearance of magic and also I think to reconcile and deal with that thing that appeared in their life that, from Kamos's perspective, shouldn't have. I think
Right.
because classic royal training, like he's going to be drinking the Kool-Aid as a young one in the aristocracy of this whole world. I think that's straightforward, easy to imagine, and that's kind of like what he was asking, chemist about. It's just like, hey, I've got this awful curse, and like, okay, it's kept me alive, but like, how the fuck do I get rid of this? And we're not talking about a black spot here,
Yeah, exactly.
you know. I
Um,
think that's
yeah,
a
no,
very important thing.
I think that's very interesting. It's a good answer. How about Rune? Any ideas over there?
I'm still thinking, so unfortunately, I don't have Rune as a, like, I guess I haven't, like, set them in my mind yet, I guess.
Yeah, you're still figuring out
Like,
who they are to you.
yeah.
I get that. I mean, that's a good enough motivation for as an answer for now, is just trying to figure out who they are.
Mhm.
Yeah, I wanna figure out who they are and what their goals are, besides just pirate.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Hey, a definitely important thing. So I am kind of curious, does then Gellin have a goal in mind, like that can be shared on air at this point? I mean, obviously, we don't want to necessarily spoil too much about our characters and what we're trying to do, but um, is
Yeah,
there a thing that they currently know that they're trying to do that hasn't been shared with the group? And is there a thing that, since this is reconciling with how authority as a thing works, a thing you want to work through?
yeah. I think the best I can do for that, without giving up too much information, is that Gellin isn't overly bothered by this curse that's been placed on him, and it's more of an inconvenience in the grand scheme of, I want to get out of the scattered lands. Like, Gellin doesn't want to
Mhm.
be here because he views being in this, trapped in this maelstrom, as being a
Oh.
limit on his freedom.
Mhm.
So definitely a big goal is going to be getting out of the scattered lands for Gellin.
Mhm.
But it's not going to come at the cost of, all right, I'm going to bounce and like find a way out. It's going to be I need to get a crew that can get me out of here. And so right now
Hmm.
that is step number one, is becoming part of a crew that can get out of here. Yeah, perfect.
Nice.
It's pretty dope.
I think that's been a nice little talk back for now. Thank you everyone for stopping by. It was very great to see you all. Today's going to be just a little bit shorter because we're down Tovi, and ideally we're going to have a special guest next week who I won't reveal who it is yet.
Ooh.
Uh,
Don't lie. You just got scared because I'm starting to get warmed up on thinking about questions I want to ask.
See, the problem is I would absolutely keep going just asking questions between the two of us, but I feel bad for Alex.
Alex, I love you. Well, I mean, no. I definitely have plans on the questions that I would ask Alex, where it's just like, yes, tell me about your piratey nature.
See, that's
I don't
good. It's good to hold on to that for later, when Alex has had more time to figure out who they're playing as. So
Yeah.
so jot those questions down. Chat room, thank you again so much for joining us today. We're gonna call it here really quick. Just want to give a quick shout out to everyone who stopped in, and then also just go ahead and plug the fact that we do have a YouTube channel, which this VOD will likely be going up on pretty soon. We also have a Discord channel that you can join, get some information, any announcements, ask some informal questions. Any questions that you want to ask in that Discord will be eventually brought back onto this Talkback show every Friday that we have, so we can get kind of a more like open answering of things. But yeah, it's been absolutely great to have everyone here, and we're just gonna see really quick if I can pull this off. Does anyone have any closing words for the rest of the chat room?
you know, go on YouTube, get in the comments, talk about how awesome Kamos is, and give us your undying creative support because
Exactly.
we're cool, definitely, and I hope we're entertaining to you for sure.
Anything from you, Alex? Any last words? Final goodbyes, farewells, concerns?
Okay, do crimes.
Be gay, do crimes. That's the official luck check stance. Signing off, this has been Johnny McAllister with my 2 players and guests, Dr. Ben Stortenbecker and Alex Mason. We're going to send it off with a fun little raid. Heading off to the duck pond very soon. They are also doing some D&D sort of thing. Tuning in next week at Wednesday, 6 p.m. Goodbye!
Bye. Coming.